Hello, this is Nate and Matt with Huge Movie Fanatics. He's Nate, I'm Matt. I'm also with State of Flux. You can check out my channel at State of Flux. We're here to talk to you about the recent Ghostbuster movies, the Ghostbuster Afterlife and Ghostbuster Frozen Empire, to be specific.
I don't think we've ever talked about, before I pressed record, I kind of said, so we never really talked about the first two movies, or even, well, I guess three, but I don't, Anyway, we're...
All of this will come
is
up
this gonna
because
come up?
I would imagine, like, my thoughts on them will touch on all five of the movies.
Okay, so I just wanted to preface by saying, we, just for the record, there are no reviews of the original two and the 2016 movie on the movies on this channel. We just, time's limited and we just want to talk about the two recent ones, and like Matt says, you'll probably end up talking about all of them in this anyway. So who do you want to start with? Ghostbusters Afterlife?
Let's start with Ghostbusters Afterlife. That was one that I was excited for. I'm a fan of Jason Reitman. I think he's a fantastic filmmaker. Juno is one of my favorite movies. He also made a lovely little picture called Up in the Air, but a lot of his movies are quite good. I was really interested to see him tackle this movie that that his dad made. After 1999 or so happened, when they had announced that they were going full force into Ghostbusters 3, it was going to happen, and then it didn't happen, and then in 2004, I want to say...
It became a video game.
No, not even that yet. Dan Aykroyd was like, this is our last chance, we're going to do it. Bill Murray said he would do it if they just kill off his character, so he's going to be a ghost in the movie. And when that even didn't happen, I was like, alright, I will never believe this movie's going to happen. And then, very sadly, Harold Ramis passed away. And he was my favorite of the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but didn't they do the game before he passed away?
Yes, they did the game.
Okay.
I have not played the game.
I had it and played a little bit of it, but...
I've heard it's great.
Okay.
But once he passed away, I was like, this is never going to happen. I don't care. And so when they announced that they were going to do it, I was just like... Well, that's the one way to get me to care, is you brought in a person who has connective tissue to that first movie in Jason Reitman, and he has reverence so much for the franchise. Let's see what he brings. And when I saw the first one, I was kind of shocked, because it is so reverent to the first movie in not the same way that you get with a direct sequel or just remake or whatever of we've been talking a lot about the Halloweens or the Force Awakens. It's definitely not that for Ghostbusters. Yes, it includes Zool, and it includes Gozer, and it includes all these things. It has the same fucking score. I don't know why the hell, up until the last scene, they don't do anything new with the score.
And is what's his name? I always forget his name.
Bernstein.
Elmer Bernstein. Is he even credited?
He's credited. It has themes from Ghostbusters,
okay.
But it has a new composer that just reworks his stuff almost identically. It is a sequel. It's not just retreading the same ground in the same way, and so I was impressed by it, but I think two things were my big takeaways. One was the final scene of the movie, where we get Harold Ramis brought back. Spoiler alert! Fuck it, it's all gonna be spoilers.
Everyone's seen it.
The ending of that movie, once Harold Ramis returns with the original Ghostbusters crew as they're taking on Gozer at the end, is touching, but that movie brought me to tears. I think the best scene of the year, the year that this movie came out, was Harold Ramis saying goodbye to his granddaughter, but to us was us getting a chance to say the goodbye we never knew we needed to do to this iconic writer, director, and actor, and character. I loved it. It makes me cry every single time. But that brings me to the second point I have to say about Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is, it's weirdly not funny. It's a shockingly somber movie, and it's not exciting like some elements of Ghostbusters are, either of Ghostbusters 1 or 2. It's not got much spectacle to it. It's innately Ghostbusters, but it's weirdly somber and not funny. Yet I still like it. I think it's a good movie, and it's one that I give a firm 3 stars to. It's a movie that I recommend. Where do you land with Afterlife?
Yeah, I think ultimately, and since are we doing both?
We're gonna do both in one.
Oh, okay. Since my channel, I don't even know what the hell's going on. So we're gonna do Afterlife and Frozen Empire in one. To start off, I'd say I probably like this more than Frozen Empire. It's interesting because part of my problem with Frozen Empire, it's weird, like, I'm of the opinion that, like, this, and I have no problem with slow movies. I'm like a slow movie aficionado. I love Barry Lyndon. I don't know if you've seen Barry Lyndon. That's like one of the slowest movies anyone can watch or whatever. So I have no problem with slow, but what was your thoughts on, it's like I both applaud like such a big movie, because this was a big movie, and then because of certain things it took forever to come out.
Yeah.
But this was a big movie, and I applaud such a big, like, highly anticipated movie for moving so slow at the beginning and
really
just taking its time.
Take its time.
How do you feel about that? Is that like, for me, I find it both, like, I applaud it, because it's like, for me, it's rarely done in such a high profile kind of summer movie. But at the same time, it's like, God, is it a little too slow? Like, what are your thoughts?
It does get. It's never laborious or anything like that. It is slow. It's it's a movie that takes its time. But if you're thinking about it, for fans of the original, we haven't revisited this territory honestly in at that point. What was it? 20-something years.
Probably
21, 22 years, something like that. So it's nice to get like the slow dive into it, but for a lot of people this was probably their first Ghostbusters. So it's, if you watch the very first Ghostbusters movie, that movie also takes its time. Like, you have the great opening scene, but then it's like another 40 minutes before really stuff starts picking up. You have little elements of like the Zool and all that stuff.
What you touched on, though, which is very important between these two movies, is unlike the Afterlife, if the first one wasn't doing Ghostbusters stuff, it was being a comedy.
Yes, exactly. It was, this movie, I would never say is funny, it's amusing at times. Paul Rudd brings his Paul Rudd energy that really helps to elevate. I will say, I liked the characters kind of across the board, but especially Phoebe Spangler, the granddaughter, and then Paul Rudd, and then Podcast, the friend to Phoebe. Those 3 characters are a great highlight. All well acted. McKenna Grace is fantastic in the movie as Spangler's granddaughter, or Egon's granddaughter, or whatever. But yeah, it's more amusing than it's ever funny, which is a choice. But yeah.
And honestly, I haven't seen it for a couple, maybe, I don't know when it came out on video. I didn't see it in the theater. I think it came out in the theater. I can't remember. Yeah. I just figured I'd buy the Blu-ray when it came out. I think I might have even... No, I didn't wait. Normally I'll wait for a Blu-ray, like I'm waiting for Thanksgiving to drop at least to 15 or preferably lower. But, well, I've seen that, though. I saw it on Netflix. But I just figured, hell with it. We waited forever to see this, so I just blind bought the Blu-ray. I figured it'd be good enough for that. It was. I'm glad, I've seen it more than once, but I'm just a long-winded way of saying I haven't seen it for a while. But I do remember the trotting kind of first half or whatever. And what are your thoughts on, like, after all this time, and I'm not the biggest, I don't really like Ghostbusters 2, but one thing you gotta give to Ghostbusters 2 is, like, having a completely different, like, bad guy ghost or whatever.
So, yeah.
But what are your thoughts on just bringing back the bad guy from the first movie again? So
I'm not in love with that. If they had done it the exact same way as the first movie, I would have been like, well, this is not for me.
Right.
The fact that she never goes full Stay Puffed is beneficial. The fact that the house is the trap. The fact that Egon found an inevitability that Gozer was going to escape, and they had temporarily locked Gozer, but they didn't diminish it. And he came up with this plan. He spent his life's work to trap it forever. Worked for me. That said, I do think it's kind of fucked up that they, like, a movie that's so, like, in honor of Harold Ramis, they kind of turn him into, like, just this fucking terrible father. And they ruin any relationship he has with his daughter, makes her just a cynical mess, which completely is understandable given the life circumstances that we are led to believe she was put in. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on that. It's very reverential to him, but also not, and it's strange.
Both at the same time.
Yeah, it's weird. But also, like, this movie lacks the spectacle of the first Ghostbusters. Oh. And I liked in Ghostbusters 2 that we had a completely new villain that's 100% different, but also the Ghostbusters are going up against a painting. There's really, outside of the Statue of Liberty thing, not much spectacle to go with in that one. When you think of the first Ghostbusters movie, it is a spectacle. Like, the whole city is getting, like, destroyed. They're, like, you have big set pieces of movement in 1984 budget that makes
remarkable.
that, kind of like like, then Ghostbusters never really reached that level of spectacle.
They aimed too damn high that first time, and it was like, what do you even do after that?
Yeah, so in the second one, they're going against slime and a painting. And, like, it's not a bad thing. It's just, like, for me, it works, but it's just the level of spectacle is one of the many things that holds that movie so separated from the first. This one brings back the same one, but kind of just tempers it with the same lower budget for a modern blockbuster. That movie is like a low budget for
Afterlife.
Afterlife,
oh,
yeah.
Wow.
I think it had a $70 million budget. For context, that's the same amount of money as, like, Joker.
Oh.
And, like, that's pretty shockingly low, all things considered. Like, yeah, so it's surprising that they didn't go bigger with it. Which I guess might lead us into Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did you give stars for Afterlife?
Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I think it's a very firm 3. It could almost be 3.5 on a good day.
I can't remember what I gave it. Check out my original review. I'd say it's probably 2, maybe. Okay. So it's like I can see, I appreciated, like, you know, what they had to do and what they ended up doing with, like, you know, Egon's character with what they could do. But, like, you know, I just have a hard time with it. Like you say, I mean, the first movie was this famous comedy. They came from Meatballs, Stripes, Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is primarily like a goofball comedy, plus all this visual epic stuff.
It's a workplace comedy. It's like The Office, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because I'm criticizing Afterlife for being too different and criticizing it for the things that it's very like the same bad guy. So it's like, well, what you know, pick one, buddy. But that's what I'm doing. I'm saying, you know, it's not enough like the first one, when maybe it's too much like the first one in certain aspects. It just maybe you know, maybe have Gozer, Zool, whatever, and then just have like another little bad guy, or have a main bad guy. I don't know, but yeah. So anyway, I was, like I say, 2 out of 4, kind of right down the middle with Afterlife. One thing I did like, and I was looking forward to the most, obviously, having been a kid of the 70s and 80s, seeing the original in the theater. And for the record, you know, I was like, what, 7? So it kind of scared me. And I remember my mom saying, my mom was mad at me that I was afraid. She's like, it's not scary, kind of yelling at me. Thank you, Mom, but
fair enough.
So it's not scary. Watch it. Then she put on those Clockwork Orange things on my eyes, and I was like, I love this music. No, but anyway. So on to Frozen Empire. One thing I was going to say, sorry, about the end of Afterlife was, the thing I was looking forward to the most was the original guys returning at the end. And it obviously could have been a lot longer with the original guys, but I do think the original guys at the end were like spot on. Mm-hmm. And I think Bill Murray was like like really spot on as what the hell is his character?
Venkman.
Venkman was spot on as his character. The lines they gave him and his delivery was just Venkman, like it was 1985. Like he never. It was just a year later. I love that. And then the added bit of like the thing that you didn't expect, like there's that shot, does it like pull back of the profiles and then the ghost of Egon or whatever? I mean, that's like you say, that aspect of that movie, the end of that movie was really great.
It's so touching.
Before I end my, second review of Afterlife, the end of that, for those two reasons, is great. Cut to Frozen Empire. What were my thoughts going into it? I was hoping, it kind of made it look like there was going to be more of the original characters, and there was more of Dan Aykroyd. He's almost a main character, which I appreciated.
Yeah, they bump him up quite a bit.
Yeah, and I actually I only saw this once, so I may be a little rusty, but I appreciated Dan Aykroyd being like a main character. But as the movie wore on, I felt like, oh my God, we've got so many characters. And then that one guy from that one movie, The Big Sick or whatever, and he's like a comedian or whatever. That guy, I found him to be kind of annoying. That's just my take. But like just so many characters. And maybe halfway through the movie, I just became aware of this. We're talking about Frozen Empire. Became aware of like, God dang, this. It's like it doesn't know where the hell it wants to go. And it's just all over. Oh, I guess he disagrees, which is fine until I say it isn't. But it felt like, God, where does this thing want to go? And I was annoyed with, I guess I'll just simply say, certain aspects of the movie. And for the record, like whenever, I thought Bill Murray was spot on as Venkman in Afterlife. And I thought whoever wrote his dialogue or whoever, for this movie as Venkman was just like, it's like they never even saw the first movie. Like the Venkman stuff in this movie, I think, is like kind of eye-rollingly bad. Like when he's like throwing stuff at. I can remember him like the first Venkman scene where he's doing like it's an homage to like the test scene in the first movie. I thought he started throwing stuff at him. Someone is just like trying to be funny, but in my opinion, not funny. So. One thing I liked about Frozen Empire was like. Very much with like a sequel, the first movie we talked about how it kind of like took a while to get things going. One thing about a sequel, kind of like RoboCop 2, is you can just get right into the ghost busting right away. The characters are already, I did like the opening, like ghost busting scene, and I forgot to mention the remote control trap in the Afterlife was cool. You take it up a notch and you have a drone trap in this. That kind of stuff I appreciated, the upgrading of that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I'm just like, I appreciated more of Dan Aykroyd, and there's more of like Winston, isn't there?
Winston has quite a bit.
And I guess part of me wished there'd been more of Venkman, but if he's going to be like he was in the scenes he's in, maybe it's a good thing there ain't more Venkman. But I want to say that I think when I initially saw it, like my star rating was kind of like the same. Like there's things I like more about this than Afterlife, and then there's things I don't. For me, Afterlife, even though it was felt like it was trotting, at least it kind of had this direction. And this one, like I say, I just feel like a lot of times didn't know where the hell it wanted to go. So I guess I can go 2 stars out of 4 stars for this one as well. For different reasons. Like I like certain things more and certain things less and vice versa compared to Afterlife.
So my thoughts on Frozen Empire, which I don't like the title.
What the hell would you... Now you've come up with some really good ideas for like Star Wars and how you would have done stuff. Do you have a different title for this?
I don't know. I really don't.
Frozen Solid Empire?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay.
I would have called it. A Cold Day in Hell.
Hey, there you go.
I have no idea, but I don't love the title. It makes sense. It's just not one that rolls off the tongue.
What's the Empire? Anyway, go ahead.
The Empire State Building?
Hey.
That said, I had heard a lot of negative stuff about this. This is the worst reviewed Ghostbusters movie, even surpassing Ghostbusters 2. This didn't make its money back at the box office.
Oh, geez. What was the budget on this? Do you know,
I think this one was 100. It might have been 110.
So, are we saying domestic or worldwide it couldn't make? I can't believe worldwide.
So, like, the way that it works is other countries pay to play it and stuff like that, but we also have to pay them. So you have to essentially double the budget worldwide, but then that's just making the money back for the cost. It didn't pull a profit beyond. So like it kind of just squeaked by, and that's not what you want for a big movie that is thought of as making money. You want to make money, and this didn't. It's not that it lost money; it just kind of barely exists. And
oh man,
that for that, a studio is probably not going to be gung ho to make another one. So I'd heard a lot of these negative things, so I saw it literally last week, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. I thought it was a good movie. I like it. I have notes. What I thought was interesting was this movie remembers that it's a comedy.
Oh, okay.
So it's funnier than the previous one, certainly, but it's not as funny as even like the Ghostbusters remake from 2016. It goes hard in the scary territory, which I thought was kind of weird. I did watch this one with my 9-year-old daughter, who found the villain of this movie genuinely terrifying. She watched the other Ghostbusters movies and was completely fine. But she was like hugging her knees kind of thing.
Were you saying, it's not scary?
No, I wasn't. I was like, are you scared? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, you're hugging your knees. And she's like, that's what I do.
That's what I do when I was
but I was surprised at how like visceral and almost violent, or the levels of intensity got for the movie, which was, like, as I say, it was just sort of surprising to me. But I liked it. I liked that you could launch right into the ghost busting of it all. What it reminded me of was, and what the filmmakers have acknowledged, is that it's very similar to Ghostbusters, the TV show, the real Ghostbusters, the animated one, which I used to watch when I was a kid. I loved that show. So my relationship with Ghostbusters was my absolute first fandom. Peter Venkman was my favorite character when I was a little kid, and I would learn to act by reciting all of his lines from both movies. And I remember distinctly acting out the end of Ghostbusters 2 over and over and over again when he's on the ground and talking back to the painting of what was the name of the...
I don't even know.
Vigo. Vigo that had come out. And...
well, that's cool.
So, like, watching... but there was only 2 movies. There was this TV show that they would play every Saturday morning, and I watched that, and I got all the toys and stuff like that, and the ease of access and the repeated viewing of that show was something that... is not lost on me. If you watch Ghostbusters 2, the people that don't like it, I think, probably never watched the TV show, which admittedly the TV show is nothing like the first movie outside of having the same core concepts, and these are ghost-busting people, but it has much more of a mythology that is episodic, and sometimes you have bigger episodes, sometimes you have smaller scale episodes. Ghostbusters 2 felt like an extension of the Ghostbusters cartoon show, just with the same actors and now looks of the characters from the first movie. And I liked that one a lot when I was a kid. I don't hate Ghostbusters 2. It's definitely inferior. As I grew older and started being interested in film, I love Ghostbusters. I think it's one of the best movies of the 80s. Ghostbusters 2 doesn't fall in that same category, but I like it. This feels much more like... If you like Ghostbusters 2, and there's an audience out there that likes that movie a lot, they're going to like Frozen Empire. I think it feels very much in tone with Ghostbusters 2. I will say, in terms of spectacle, this movie is the biggest that the whole franchise goes. It goes big, it goes hard, it goes huge, kind of all the way through. If you don't respond to the characters, like it sounds like you didn't, I like Kumail Nanjiani. I think he's a funny actor. I'm a big fan of The Big Sick, but I like him just in general. Most movies that I've seen him in, he's really funny. Um, I liked him in this. He was good. He never overstayed his welcome for me. Finn Wolfhard, they actually gave him shit to do in this one. Like, he was just kind of there to be, like, to have, like, a weird sort of romance in the first movie, but, like,
Yeah.
I don't know why he was really ultimately there other than to give somebody to, like, bounce off of in a negative way for Phoebe. This one, he's actually like actively learning, and he's dealing with the rodent in the attic that is Slimer, and so I kind of dug that whole thing. I liked it. I think it's a perfectly serviceable Ghostbusters movie, and it makes me wish that we'd gotten more of these just kind of little episodic adventures. Maybe Ghostbusters isn't something that can sustain a film platform. Maybe it's something that's better suited for television.
Series.
Yeah, and that was kind of my takeaway for it. I like it. I think it's 3 stars. It's nowhere near as quality of filmmaking as Ghostbusters Afterlife, but similar to Ghostbusters 2, which I'd also give 3 stars, it's a very entertaining or enjoyable piece of work. None of them are anywhere as good as the first movie that, as I say, is one of the best movies of the decade it came out.
Yeah, it was really interesting how you like tied it into the cartoon series like that, and kind of I mean, that's looking at it from that way, I can see what you mean, but
yeah,
that was really cool.
There you have
And
it.
then you just said 2016. That's kind of your thoughts on.
I like to. I think the first movie is a 4-star movie. I think every other Ghostbusters movie is a 3-star serviceable film. I don't think the Ghostbusters remake is bad. The worst part about it is it's not as good as the first one by any stretch of the imagination. And the style of comedy is that which you use improv and find the scene through improv, but that's not really how I feel like a lot of these movies should work. When you, like, certainly there are movies that have worked that way. I think 40-Year-Old Virgin is a very funny movie, but Judd Apatow made a lot of movies after that, and none of them are as funny as the 40-Year-Old Virgin. I think scripting funny scenarios and not just improvising it to death until, okay, we're just going to take the scene with the best joke is not how to structure a movie, in my opinion. So, I do think Ghostbusters 2016 is funny, but it's an inferior remake I'd still recommend.
Very cool.
There you have it.
That's our thoughts on, well, Matt's thoughts kind of on all the Ghostbusters.
All 5.
And mine on mostly the 2 most recent ones. Obviously, the first film, I mean, is just a beyond classic. I don't hate the second one, but it's just...
It's kind of more of the same.
Yeah, there's that, and...
It doesn't have the energy or creative freedom that the first one had. Because the first one, they set out to make a movie. The second one, they set out to cash in on the success.
Yeah, it's a completely different beast. And when you, like I say, when the bar's set so high first time out, it's just like, holy Hannah.
Yeah, and by the time they made the second one, the TV show had been successful, and VHS was still kind of in its somewhat early days. More people probably saw the cartoon than saw the actual first Ghostbusters movie, so if you make a sequel to Ghostbusters, you can't just do Ghostbusters the movie a second time. You have to do something that's got to be similar to what an audience is expecting, which you got to think is that cartoon. So you make a softer movie, which Ghostbusters 2 is, and you make it like with the same energy of the TV show, and I feel that Ghostbusters 2 embodies a live-action version of that cartoon perfectly. So.
Right on, brother.
There you have.
All right, Matt, thanks again for stopping on by to do another review on Huge Movie Fanatics. Always appreciate it. You know that.
Yes.
And you know that. I appreciate you for showing up, and I appreciate you for showing up. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.
What's your favorite Ghostbusters sequel? Drop it down.
Drop it down in the comments, brother.